Dear students, in the last class we have seen pests of sugarcane, and we have seen the pests of sugarcane can be classified into three groups: borer pests, subterranean pests, and sucking pests. Yesterday we have completed borer pests. Today we will complete the subterranean pests and sucking pests. Among the subterranean pests, the major one is termites, Odontotermus and Microtermus, and termites are seen in the crop in sugarcane crop throughout its crop stages. It starts from planting until its harvest, and the major damage occurs just after planting. If there is no water for irrigation, if drought condition is prevailing, just after planting, termite population buildups in the field, and termites starts feeding from the cut ends of the sets. You might be remembering how sugarcane is planted in the field. Sugarcane, the planting material will be cut into sets containing two or three nodes, two or three buds, and these sets will be planted in furrows in the field, and this termite starts feeding from the cut ends of the planted sets. In addition to the feeding from the cut ends, the termites also feeds on the bud. As the buds of the sets are fed by the termites, there will be poor germination of the crop, and there will be lot of gaps in the field. This termite starts feeding from both ends of the field, and the entire inner contents of the cane, the planted set will be fed by the termites, and the only part remaining will be the hard outer rind. The entire inner contents will be fed by the termites, and the sets will be filled with bud. All other inner contents will be fed by the termites, and the inner content will be filled with bud, leaving only the hard rind. Because of the damage the termites cause to the buds of the sets, there will be poor germination. And because of the attack of the termites, even if the plant germinates, the shoot dries up. So the germination shoots dries up because of termites, and the dried up plant can be easily pulled out because there won't be any roots. The entire roots and rootlets will be fed by the termites, and it can be easily pulled out. And this is severe, as I already told. If there is drought condition is prevailing, that is dryness is prevailing in the soil, it favors the multiplication of termites, and it is severe in light soils. Light soils, if it is severe in those soils containing higher content of sand. So termites, it start attacks from planting till the harvest. From planting, it starts feeding from both ends of the cut ends of the sets, and the entire inner contents will be fed by the termites, and there will be mud filled inside the sets, leaving only the outer hard rind. Termites also feed on the buds and leading to poor germination. Even if the set germinates, the shoot will dry up, and the termites feed on the roots. Because of that, the plant can be easily pulled out. It is severe during drought and in light soils. So here you can see an infested termite infested uh, set slowly starting drying up. The next, it is extremely clear, you can see the shoot completely dried up because of termite infestation. Here you can see, because of termite infestation, the entire inner contents of the set is fed by the termites. You can see termites over here, and the inner part of the sets will be filled with mud. Only the hard outer rind will be left over. So this is typical damage by termites. So this is another picture. See this, the plant dries up, and it can be easily pulled out. And coming to the management, as termites prefer dry soils, if water is available, go for flood irrigation to manage termite infestation. And another way is to go for insecticide application. The insecticide application can be done in two ways. One way is to go for set treatment, that is before planting. The sets can be dipped in insecticides such as imidacloprid, usually available as trade names such as Tatamida or Confido. the SL formulation is recommended at the rate of 4 ml per 10 liter, or we can dip the sets in chlorpyrifos 20 EC at the rate of 50 ml in 10 liters, that is 5 ml per liter. So set treatment, that is dipping of sets before planting in imidacloprid or chlorpyrifos, or the same insecticides can be applied on trenches. That means after planting, once the set are placed in the trenches, we can drench the sets, but this will consume more insecticide, so set treatment is better. We can drench the furrows which we have planted with the sets with the same insecticides, imidacloprid or chlorpyrifos, at the same dose of 4 ml per 10 liter for imidacloprid and 50 ml per 10 liter for chlorpyrifos. For drenching on the sets, we can go for two more insecticides. One is bifenthrin 2 ml per liter or chlorantraniliprole at the rate of 5 ml per 10 liter. So easy way is to go for irrigation if water is available. Otherwise, go for set treatment. That is will be more easy compared to the another option of insecticide application, that is drenching the sets with insecticides. Coming to the next pest, white grub holotrichia. Uh, I think you remember the white grub which we have discussed in the previous classes. At that time, I told you it is a pest which is having an annual life cycle. That means it takes 1 year to complete its life cycle. One more name I told you other than white grub is May-June beetle, because the adults emerge during May-June with the pre-monsoon showers, and the adults emerge and it lays the eggs in the soil. The grub starts feeding on the roots, underground roots, and the grubs are active during July September. Because of the extensive feeding of the grown up feeding of the roots by the grubs, the plant starts yellow and slowly wilt. Because once the roots are fed, the plant will be deprived of the water and nutrients, and the plant starts yellowing and wilting, and eventually leading up to drying of the entire plant. As the roots are completely damaged, it can be easily pulled out, the canes can be easily pulled out, and there will be lodging of the cane. So white grapes or root grapes, the genus is Holotrichia. It's also called as May-June beetle because it is having the emergence of adults during the pre-monsoon showers of May-June. It is having an annual life cycle. The grubs feeds heavily on the roots, especially during July-September. As the roots are fed up by the grubs, there will be yellowing and drying of the plant, and the affected plants can be easily pulled out, and there will be lodging of the cane. See the adults of the beetle. I think many of you might have seen in your home during night. After monsoon showers, you can see the adults of this white grapes coming over to the light. It is attracted to it. It is positively attracted. See the leaves. These are neem leaves. They congregate in neem leaves just after emergence after pre-monsoon showers. These adults congregate on leaves of certain plants such as neem. So this is one particular feature of the adult. You can see the damage, you can see the yellowing and drying up of the plants. The plants are yellowed, eventually it dries up because of the feeding of the root grub. Here you can see the C-shaped scarab-biform larvae. You can see the adult. And coming to the management, the first and easy way of managing root grub is to rotate the field with paddy, because managing a soil-borne pest like root grub is extremely difficult. Whatever be the management practice, insecticide, the insects will be able to the root grubs will be able to escape the toxic effect of insecticides. In College of Agriculture Padanakkad campus, we have heavy infestation of root grub, and it is there for the past 20-25 years, and we are unable to manage it because if we go for insecticide application, insects will move beyond the zone of application of the pesticide. That means once we apply the pesticide hardly reaches the top 30 centimeter layer of the soil. The grub starts moving deep into the soil. Once the toxic effect of the pesticide is over, it comes to the top and again starts feeding on the root. So one way to manage the pest is to go for crop rotation with paddy. So that means if you flood the field for paddy cultivation, it is one way to manage the pest. We usually go for cropping. The crop duration for paddy is 3 to 4 months. That means we flood the field for 3 to 4 months. That's enough for removing the pest population. Another strategy is to provide irrigation. Irrigation will provide enough support for the crop, and once the crop is harvested we can go for deep plowing, because after harvest if you go for deep plowing it will destroy the pupae and the grubs in the soil. Then avoid rotowning, because rotowning favors the buildup of the pest. And as I already told you, this is a positively phototropic insect. That means the adults are attracted towards light. So during May, June, when the adults emerge from the soil, keep light traps to attract the adults. Another way is that I told you it congregates in the leaves of trees such as neem. So collect the adults by shaking the branches of neem trees and destroy the adults. Then the endopathogenic fungi Beauveria brogniati is found to be effective against root grubs, and we can go for soil drenching with Beauveria brogniati. So for the management we can go for crop rotation with paddy, provide irrigation, deep plowing so that it will destroy the grubs and the pupae, avoid rotowning, use light traps, collection and destruction of adults, and use the endopathogenic fungi Beauveria brogniati bus soil drench. So we have completed the subterranean pest. We have two subterranean pests in sugarcane. One is termite and the second one is white grub or road grub. Then we will move on to the sucking pest. The first sucking pest is woolly aphid Ceratavipona lanigera. This was extremely minor pest till 2002. I haven't studied this pest when I studied my undergraduation, but later on it became a major pest, and it became serious in 2002 onwards. And these aphids are seen on the undersurface of the leaf on either side of the midrib, that you can clearly see in this picture. Here also you can see white aphids can be seen on the undersurface of the leaf on either side of the midrib. This is the midrib, and you can see the aphids on either side of the midrib, and these aphids are covered with white waxy flocculent secretion. You can see it somewhat similar to mealybugs, but these are not mealybugs. These are aphids are covered with this. Unlike other aphid, these aphids are covered with white waxy flocculent secretion. That's why it is called as woolly aphid, because the body is covered by white waxy flocculent secretion. So the entire undersurface of the leaf will be covered with white waxy flocculent secretion, and nymphs and adults suck sap from the leaf. And as you know, Homopteran succumbus excrete honeydew. Because of the excess consumption of fluids, they will excrete honeydew, and this honeydew falls over the upper surface of the leaf, and there will be sooty mold growth on the upper surface of the leaf. This sooty mold growth on the upper surface of the leaf will reduce photosynthesis, and the weather factors such as high humidity and intermittent rain favors the buildup of the pest. Certain cultural practices also favors the buildup of the pest. If we go for closer plantings, then there will be dense crop canopy. It favors the buildup of the pest. If the farmer go for excess application of nitrogenous fertilizers, it favors woolly aphid. If there is excess irrigation, again woolly aphid infestation will be higher. So woolly aphid, it is seen on the undersurface of the leaf on either side of the midrib. There will be white waxy flocculent secretion on the undersurface of the leaf. Nymphs and adults suck sap. There will be sooty mold formation. The sooty mold reduce the photosynthetic ability of the leaf, and high humidity and intermittent rains favors the buildup of the pest, along with excess nitrogen application, excess irrigation, and closer planting of the crop. So this is how a plant attacked by woolly aphid looks like. The entire undersurface of the leaf will be covered with white waxy flocculent secretion of aphid. Here you can see how the crop is infested with woolly aphid, and on the upper surface of the leaf is completely black in color because of the formation of sooty mold, growth of sooty mold because of the excretion of honeydew by the aphids. This we have seen. This is the closer picture of the white waxy filaments on the aphids. Coming to the management, the first and foremost thing is to avoid the transportation of infested planting material from one place to another, and also avoid the transportation of infested green tops as fodder, because the green leaves of sugarcane is used as a fodder. So if we are transporting the green leaves which is infested with sugarcane woolly aphid, it leads to the spread of the aphid. So try to avoid that. Then go for detrashing and destruction of affected leaves. I told you it is seen on the leaves, undersurface of the leaf. Those leaves which are infested with woolly aphid should be removed, that is detrashing, and it should be properly destroyed. Avoid excess irrigation, avoid excess nitrogen, and avoid closer planting, because these are the cultural practices which favors the buildup of the woolly aphid. This is a pest which can be easily managed by biological control options. So, but we have to have a weekly monitoring so that the pests do not build up quickly. There are several successful biocontrol agents for the management of this pest. You have to remember these scientific names because they are extremely effective in managing woolly aphid all over the country. Among this, we have a very good Lepidopteran predator belonging to the family Pyralidae. Remember, we don't normally find a Lepidopteran predator in other insects. But we have a Lepidopteran predator feeding on sugarcane woolly aphid Ceratophragma lanigera, and that predator is Dipha ephidivora, and we can release Dipha ephidivora pupae at the rate of 1000 cocoons per hectare. There is another predator which is a neuropteran predator. The scientific name is Micromus. We can go for the release of Micromus at the rate of 2500 per hectare. Then there is a naturally occurring parasitoid Encarsia flavoscutellum. All these three natural enemies are extremely effective in bringing down the population of sugarcane woolly aphid. So remember the scientific name: the Lepidopteran predator Dipha ephidivora, the Neuropteran predator Micromus, and the natural parasitoid Encarsia flavoscutellum. And even if we have to go for pesticide application, go for spot application. Don't go cover the entire crop, because if we go for spraying the entire crop, the natural enemy population will decline. And to avoid that, go for spot application only on those areas of the field where the woolly aphid is high. We can go for spraying with acephate or dimethoate. Acephate at the rate of 2 gram per liter, or dimethoate at the rate of 2 mg per liter. As the aphids are covered with white waxy secretion, before spraying, go for a spray of soap solution so that this waxy coating can be removed and the pesticide can be effectively applied onto the insect body surface. Otherwise, the white waxy filament prevent the insecticide from reaching the body of the insect. And while spraying, leave refugia. Refugia means leaving area untreated with pesticide. So if we have 1 acre of area, we will leave around 20 or 30 cents of area without spraying insecticide. That is called as refugia. This will prevent the destruction of natural enemies, and natural enemy population build up in this untreated refugia, and this will control the subsequent emergence of pests. So if you go to the management of sugarcane woolly aphid, the cultural practices which should be followed is avoid the excess nitrogen, excess irrigation, and closer spacing. Avoid transportation of infested planting material and green tops as fodder. Remove and destroy the affected leaves. Monitor the pest population every week. And release of Lepidopteran pyralid predator Dipha ephidivora, Neuropteran predator Micromus, and the natural parasitoid is the Encarsia, which are effective in suppressing the population. Even if we have heavy infestation, go for spot application only in those areas where pest population is high with pesticides such as acephate or dimethoate. As the insects are covered with white waxy filaments, go for a soap solution spray, 2% soap solution spray, so that the pesticides are more effective. and leave some area untreated so that the natural enemy population is conserved. Here you can see the Lepidopteran larvae of Diffa aphidivora feeding on the aphids. Now you can see the aphids clearly. Otherwise, it will be covered with white waxy filaments. See, the entire leaf is fed by the entire woolly aphid on the undersurface of the leaf is cleaned up by the Diffa aphidivora larvae. It's devoid of woolly aphid because of the feeding of Diffa. Such a voracious feeder, so it's extremely effective. This is the Micromus neuropteran predator. Coming to the next sucking pest, Pyrilla purpusilla. The common name is sugarcane pyrilla. Those fields where there is excess nitrogen, where there is waterlogging, if the crop lodges, and if you go for cultivation of varieties with broad succulent leaves, then pyrilla infestation will be higher. So just like woolly aphid, if there is excess nitrogen application, waterlogging, then pyrilla population also will be higher. Along with it, if there is lodging of the crop or we are planting varieties with broad succulent leaves, then the crop will be extremely susceptible for infestation of Pyrilla purpusilla. And then, as we discussed with almost all the sucking pests, the nature of damage is nymphs and adults suck sap, and this sucking of the sap, then these insects excrete honeydew, and this honeydew falls on the upper surface of the leaf, and there will be sooty mold formation affecting photosynthesis. The eggs are laid on the undersurface of the leaves, and eggs will be covered with white waxy filaments that you can see in the next slide. You can clearly see. So eggs laid on the undersurface of the leaf, and there will be white waxy filaments. And the nymph is typical in nature. The nymph is having a pair of anal filaments. That's how one typical, we can identify the nymphs of Pyrilla. That's one typical feature of Pyrilla. So excess nitrogen, waterlogging, lodging, broad leaves, succulent leaves, all favors the multiplication of Pyrilla. Nymphs and adults suck sap, forms, there will be formation of sooty mold because of the excretion of honeydew. Then the eggs are laid on the undersurface of the leaves and it will be covered with white waxy filaments, and the nymphs will be having a pair of anal filaments. Here you can see the eggs are laid on the undersurface of the leaf and covered with white waxy filaments. You can see the nymph with two anal filaments. You can see this two anal filaments on the nymphs, and this is the adult. You can see the head, it is slightly pointed, snout like, so that's a typical feature of Lophopidae. Coming to the management, it can be easily managed by biocontrol options and cultural practices such as hand collection and destruction of egg masses, because egg masses can be easily spotted. We can go for release of Lepidopteran ectoparasitoid. Earlier for woolly aphid we discussed it is a Lepidopteran predator. Here we have a Lepidopteran ectoparasitoid. I think you know what is an ectoparasitoid and an endoparasitoid. Ectoparasitoid is a parasitoid which feeds from outside. So we don't find so many Lepidopteran parasitoids. So remember a Lepidopteran ectoparasitoid, Epiricania melanoleuca. We can release mass culture and release Epiricania melanoleuca cocoons at the rate of 8,000 to 10,000 per hectare, or we can release eggs of Epiricania melanoleuca at the rate of 8 lakh to 10 lakh eggs per hectare. Or if infestation is extremely severe, you can go for spray of acephate or dimethoate. As we have discussed, the dose is same as we discussed in the woolly aphid as 2 gram or 2 ml per liter. So the management includes hand collection and destruction, release of Lepidopteran ectoparasitoid Epiricania melanoleuca. See, this is the adult of Epiricania melanoleuca. It's a moth. Uh, no, it's a pyralidae, it's not a bird, it's a butterfly. You can see the Lepidopteran predator laying eggs near the nymphs of Pyrilla. You can see the Pyrilla nymph and the ectoparasitoid. Remember, it is an ectoparasitoid. Parasitoid will feed the insect from the outside. The Pyrilla nymph is carrying the larvae of Epiricania. The Epiricania is feeding on the Pyrilla larvae, Pyrilla nymph, and it is an ectoparasitol. So that is with respect to Pyrilla. Coming to the next place, whitefly, Alirolobus barodensis. It is mostly seen in waterlogged saline soils and those fields which have poor hygiene. So that means if the crop is not well managed, then whitefly infestation is higher. Just like we discussed the earlier two sucking pests, woolly aphid and pyrilla, nymphs and adults suck sap from the leaf. There will be honeydew excretion leading to the formation of sooty mold, and there will be yellow spots on the leaf because the nymphs and adults suck sap, and there will be yellow spots on the leaf. And the management is similar as earlier with acephate or dimethoate. So this is the whitefly nymphs. You can see the whitefly, the nymph, eggs laid nymphs. And coming to the next pest, mealybugs, Saccharococcus sacchari. Here the mealybugs are extremely severe in those varieties which are having tight leaf sheath, because the mealybugs can take shelter in the tight leaf sheath of sugarcane. So varieties with tight leaf sheath are extremely susceptible. As earlier, nymphs and adults suck sap, there will be sooty mold formation, and mealybugs can be easily managed by detrashing and maintaining field hygiene. The detrashing helps to manage mealybug because it hides within the leaf sheets. This is the picture of mealybug again. Coming to the next pest, that is blackbug cavalierius sueti. This is a ligate pest. They severe in ratoon crop. The nymphs and adults suck sap, and there will be yellowing of the leaves and with some irregular brown spots on the leaf. That is the early symptom. Later on, the plant starts drying up from the leaf tip and the margin, and the entire plant starts withering. The growth of the plant will be affected and the juice quality will be reduced. For management of black bug, we can go for burning of the trash and crop residues after harvest. We can go for irrigation of the crop or spray acephate or dimethoate. The next pest is aphid. I am showing only the pictures. You can see the aphids in both these pictures. It's a close-up picture of aphids. You can see the cornicles. I think you remember what are cornicles. Then we have scales. You can see the sets of the canes of sugarcane completely covered with scales. You can see a close-up of scale attached over to the cane surface. So we are completing the sugarcane also. I am completing my part. From the next class onwards will be handled by Ranjit sir. Ranjit sir will take up cotton and oil seeds. So if you need to go for this mode of classes, I will prepare a video of rice, wheat, maize, sorghum and ragi in this mode, and I will upload it on YouTube. Or if you're fine with the earlier voice clip itself, then it's okay. That's fine. If you need it, just inform me, and I will be having go through the material. I will be conducting an online quiz. Don't think there's a examination for mark purpose. This is just to understand what you have learned. uh, I'll be conducting it by the weekend, maybe Saturday, Sunday, or so I'll inform you. Go through the slide. It will be completely one word. Go through the all the slides one word. Once I will be first preparing a quiz for rice alone. So go through the slides of it. I'll inform the date and time through Ramjit. If you need further clarification, or if you need a presentation like this, for just like I have prepared for sugarcane, inform me so that I will record it tomorrow and will inform. So thank you very much.